Welcome to Event-Vods. Watch the full game from NLC Spring Playoffs 2025.
Of that 2v2, lane assignments never ended up really being super favorable, and curiously enough, Verdant have actually chosen to stay on red side. So no blue side swap over. We see that a lot, right? That is kind of the priority for a lot of teams. Whilst I do think perhaps the argument is a little bit over-exaggerated. We'll see what Verdant are able to cook up on red side in game number 2 with those first game 1 champs out.
If you look into the top, you know what can't be picked anymore, and those are like the stable picks towards LR. And interestingly enough, the Azir being banned away by LR when Nemesis is just a king on the Azir. Maybe they're trying to save it. They want to bring a different sort of playstyle. Poppy as well for Titan, which means mobility could be something in the mists as the Pantheon, so junglers are being hit right now.
And interesting enough, Jace being banned by Verdant this time. Probably not wanting to give it to Lost Ratones on the blue side, but it's not exactly a champion that Lost Ratones go into, especially when it comes to the top lane. It is a Terran champion. It is not about champion.
I mean, the weird thing is, I don't think I recall Lost Ratones playing any Jace besides maybe a game over at EMEA. Like, they've not done it here, right? Obviously, it would be a Nemesis champion as a Rumble as well. I mean, these are very standard bans from Verdant, but they're not playing against the standard team.
Yeah, I'm confused. Are we not having them, you know?
The switch. I was about to ask you, Jamada. You are on champion select. Can you check?
Well, see, here's the funny thing about the TR client is it doesn't actually tell you whether or not it doesn't tell you the players. So I actually also, whilst I am in the in the select, I don't have the names come up. So I'm going to assume for the time being that this is the correct sides, that Verdant are on on red. I will perhaps ping Tiv.
I pinged them already. Yeah, this is so interesting.
It is actually very bizarre. No way. So this has to be
right,
okay. Verdant is blue. Okay, good. We were
swapped. Okay,
we were bamboozled. Yeah, I hadn't looked at the client since I joined. The lobby started before I could even really take in who was on sides. So yeah, for the time being, we will obviously get this fixed ASAP. Verdant is on blue side, guys. Verdant is on blue side. Lost Ratones are on red.
I'm sorry, this is way too good.
But
hopefully we can get that sorted out. I was about to say, like, bro, banning Rumble, Bounce Rumble, that doesn't make sense. This has to be
this
wrong
will
side.
never happen.
So,
and also then
that should
be one misfortune for Lost Ratones, for a Crowny who doesn't play Misfortune. It makes more sense for Shigadari though. Shigadari does play Misfortune, and we have seen Verdant choosing her a lot for the bot lane and trying to kind of build the team around her.
So, okay. Now everything is fixed, and as soon as possible, production will swap it. There you go. You got it. It's fixed. Because at this moment, Azir versus Nemesis on Nemesis side. Corki, it's still a flex. It could go either way, but we've seen Crowny piloting this Corki, and this is going to be aggressive as much as they can. Ooh, I like this.
Yeah, Jarvan here for Velia. Does kind of put a little bit of pressure on Senkox to potentially find something a little bit more mobile and not super vulnerable, as the MF is already there. I'm curious about what the support pick now will actually end up being for Reckless, because it feels like a lot of this composition is likely going to be geared to aggressive play, Lost Ratones, whereas obviously kind of counter to that, Reckless champion pool is usually a little bit more neutral standing, right? The closest to engaged champs that he really plays are the Alistar and the Rakan. The Alistar was the game 1 pickup, so if Verdant ban Rakan, at that point do you just go Renata and kind of consider that ultimate the over-the-top engage, or do you actually land on something like the Rel, like he was hovering in that game 1?
I'm also...
There's also another one.
Yeah. Listen, I have a question to
Okay,
Nemesis
okay.
right now as to what Nemesis is going to be playing, because this J4 pick kind of signals that most likely Koki is going to crown his hands on the bot lane, and then there has to be a mid lane that is going to have synergy with J4. But Orianna, for example, was the first idea on my mind. Nemesis has played it, works really well with J4, banned out by Los Ratones. Ari, for example, is not available anymore, as you can see on the top, because it was taken in game number 1. So what is Nemesis playing? Because he doesn't necessarily play those artillery mages that also work rather well with J4, just, you know, shooting from afar into the ultimate, into somebody being called in the ultimate. And now with Syndra being banned, what is Nemesis gonna be playing?
So we've seen Wei in the past for Nemesis,
Yeah.
where you can play from afar, but since you have the Gragas being played, you can also bring something like the Yone and try to be in the mix of the fight. I was wondering like Silas could be an answer when you have those sort of ultimates on the other side, but they themselves ban them. So I think this either an AD or maybe the Wei or another weird idea. I don't know, Jamal.
I would
Yeah.
love Hui here out of Senkox, actually. I think it's really, really efficient at dealing with dive. You've got a lot of utility, a lot of AoE damage, so it almost becomes a little bit easier if these targets are coming and towards you and diving on top of you to make that damage come out. Victor, in a very similar vein, whilst of course he's immobile, he's very, very good, weirdly, at times at surviving dive, just because of the movement speed of the Q once you get that evolution, and of course the passive. What this does, however, set up for is a pretty strong Galio game. So I'll see and hold my breath. Nemesis has plenty of options, whether they be utilitarian like that Galio, or a little bit more damage and side lane focused like the Akali. I think he's got a punch of freedom to do whatever the hell he wants, and he's going to give us an Akali game.
Okay, I like this. When you see both teams, more balanced, I think. But from your point of view, Solari and Jamada, where does it land? Where does the W is gonna land?
Ooh.
I mean, I personally think that the lane matchups are pretty solid here for Verdant. Again, much like game 1, but I do have a lot of faith in Los Ratones' ability to not only pilot those matchups, but then also kind of enable Velia off the back of small windows to, take massive leads like we saw off that level 1 setup in game 1-2. So I'm leaning towards Verdant in terms of draft, but I feel like Los Ratones' macro and their overall mechanics is likely going to claw them through.
I am not convinced on how good Misfortune and Victor are going to look in this game, considering how oversteppy both teams were in the previous game, and these two champions can be punished really badly for that. At the same time, for Los Ratones, they have champions who are usually okay with overstepping because they want to be stepping into the enemies a lot. So I would say, judging by how game number 1 went, Los Ratones should have this one with the draft.
Okay, that means at the end of this game, there will be a 2-0 and match point for Los Ratones to move forward. Is this going to be the truth? Or will Verdant find a way in order to find the solution and the answer? Let's toss it to the castles, initialize, and Trouble. What do you think?
Funnily enough, we both agree with what was said on desk. Tags off. That's a great draft from Verdant. Tags on. The mechanical expression to a team with really good hands, with the likes of an Akali or Jarvan. Sounds pretty scary to me, Georgia.
I mean, yeah, let's take as example the previous game, right? Where, as we're going to straight into that game 2, where in game 1, I feel like Los Ratones took so many disadvantageous fights on paper, but they came out of them with like blinking health bars just because they outplayed their opponents, right? And this draft for me at least screamed Akali by Nemesis. You knew that Senkox was going to go for a control mage over in the mid lane, unless you want to blind Tristana, which can work, but then you have too much AD damage, right?
Yep.
Together with all the rest. So Akali is pretty much a no-brainer with champions like Vi or Jarvan, who really like to dive deep, and they really like a body with them. And Akali does offer that body, and I'm actually worried for Shiganari. He wasn't allowed to play the fights in the previous game because of Ari Nafiri. This time around, he's going to have J4 and Akali in his face.
Yeah, a little harder that one to manage, it has to be said. 2 immobile carries, yes, with good protection, don't get me wrong, and you've got good zone control with gravity fields and saplings and all the things that you can put down to make it hard to get in. But there are just so many tools, Georgia. Literally everyone on Los Ratones has so much mobility, and we have started to see some teams draft towards that around the world, just saying, look, yes, you can set up all these front lines that you want, but if everyone has an ability to try and dash from a weird angle, it can be really hard to keep track and manage them all, particularly in the mid game.
Yeah. Now, I will say, watching LPN and like Akali's over there. Rakan
Yeah.
is such a great tool for disengage. The second Akali dives in, the R button on Rakan really does stop any further aggression. And then you've got Maokai piling up on top of the CC. You've got Victor with his gravity field. So there are tools right there that if they do spot the Akali or last minute see Nemesis, they can disrupt him from getting into the backline. What I'm fearing the most from if I'm Verdant is the Gragas. Because I'm pretty sure this is going to be a full-on Bomba Gragas coming from the bows. Which means that
No
even
doubt.
if you don't have the access to the backline, one of your combos can get Misfortune dangerously low enough that all it needs is that one last hit from Corki, from Javan, from Akali. So is this going to get really dangerous playing around the Gragas with how mobile a champion like Misfortune is?
It's another engaged champ from Reckless. There's no enchanters to be seen, no Renatas or Lulus, or even a Janna, which of course we've all come to know and love when he's on. Back towards that engage option. Looking to see whether he can catch someone out, and that'll be something to keep our eyes on. And I completely agree again about that Gragas. The other thing is it'll help break up that front line. You can set up all the wonderfully arrayed structures and defenses you want, but Baus can just press R and mess them all up in really short order. Be a really annoying person at the beach, would Baus. Your sandcastle would never survive more than 5 minutes. The
Now,
moment I
also
say
want to
that,
kinda
though,
see... Well, he did survive 3 minutes for now. 3 minutes. He's got 2 to go. However, I'm pretty sure he's going to TP straight back underneath his tower. And Maokai is heading towards the top side of the map. I'm not sure what quite the wave looks like. I think Tayron's going to be taking the reset right here, yeah. So there's no shenanigans for diving Baus. Gragas is pretty slippery as well after level 3. However, yeah, I would like to see a little bit more from Tayron as a Velia.
looking down bot. Can't quite find as much as I think he was hoping for. Obstinatus and Shiganari a little low, but they can get some healing courtesy of some passive and some gleaming quills. Always a surprisingly good bit of sustain that on the Rakan in the laning phase. Away, shove bot side allows a potential roam. Double knockup from Obstinatus buys a bit of a time here as Velia also takes a turret shot and needs to begin to back away, but look who's roaming down. There's the
Avengers!
Maokai, there's the Victor. They are indeed assembling. Dun dun dun! Senkus looks for that siphon power, looks for the auto, can't quite find it, but gets the gravity field slow. And the final empowered order comes on down as Reckless is waddling around without a horse, and unfortunately, the big tree will be helping donate another kill over towards the Victor, who helps claim the feats of warfare as well towards Verdant. They just need a turret or a few objectives, and they'll have the full expanded boots. Upgraded boots, that's a better way to phrase that.
Characteristically enough, for the side of Los Ratones, that was a very forced dive. They sticked around way too long, sank extra time to push out that wave. He's got a bunch of wave clear into the Akali, moved down the river, Noodle on his right path from the top lane, Scuttlecrab to the bot lane, Scuttlecrab to aid the bot side dive. And let's watch this one more time. That was just a little bit too much right here. Great knockup for Obstinatus. Means that Velia is stuck on his own onto Shiganari, so they cannot actually conclude that dive, which means that when they try to leave one by one, as we have more action, they end up falling to Verdant, is the short story, as well as looking for Tayron, and he's not going to find him.
No, Terran just gets to walk away. Did have to blow his flash, it's worth noting. So did get that summoner at the very least. So not entirely a wasted game. But all the while, Noodle on a Maokai is out-farming the Jarvan pretty heavily here. And that's not something you see every day of the week. Looking to turn this around, though, as the Make It Rain comes on down. Noodle looking to get behind onto Reckless, who does have the crash down, doesn't have the flash. And the autos keep flying, finally crash down. But the Sapling's running at him. It's a very aggressive, shades-wearing Maokai. Sapling is the DRX one, which for some reason just includes a lot of sunglasses and won't quite catch on to the Iron Horsewoman.
Funnily enough, we kept singing the praises of Shiganari for Verdant, and rightfully so, as I'm going to hold on to this. They're diving Crowny here.
We'll try and find a way out, but heavy is the Crowny, and unfortunately not heavy enough to fly out to safety there, even on a cool spaceship courtesy of Crowny. I suppose it's a nice toboggan in this game, but the point still stands. He dies, second death for him in this bot lane. It's kind of falling apart now here a bit, Georges. Shiganari, a person we've often praised and focused on as a focal carry point for Verdant, 32% of the team's damage. Well, he's 2-0-1.
Absolutely where Verdant want him to be, right? They prioritized him on the draft. That was a B1 Misfortune, a very bold move, actually, to lock in Misfortune on B1. And they're actually playing for him. They've created an entire composition that is very anti-dive, very immobile carry friendly to help him survive the further assault coming through from Akali, from Javan, from Gragas diving the backline. So far, so good. Noodle has paid a lot of attention towards the bot side of the map. And if you're a Los Ratones fan, then you're in your comfort zone. We're back to normal. Los Ratones early game, baby.
I mean, across all time, Shiganari's paid a lot of Misfortune. This will be his 16th game. Something like a 70% win rate on it, just shy. And this is looking pretty good for him so far. We can turn it into something a little bit more, of course, all the while. Lost Ratones do manage to stabilize a little, pick up a dragon, and again, it's not like the first time we've seen Lost Ratones mess up an early game and then find their ways back in the mid. They are so good at finding and picking up resources and relying on their mid-game prowess of a lot of their side laning to get back into games. As Baus does get hit by that Darkin Blade Part 3. Another DRX skin, by the by. And Terran will not turn that around for anything more. I appreciate the synergy between top and bot there. Nemesis has found a roam timer, though, Georgia, and I think this Aatrox might now be in a spot of bother. Flash for the perfect execution. R2 is available and doesn't even need to burn it, just uses the Q instead.
It's not even needed. That was a great transition right there from Nemesis. Leaves that mid lane, heads towards the top side of the map, and meanwhile, Baus is resetting. He's already on his way to mid lane to catch the wave, pushed in by potentially Senkax right here. And as Verdant are looking to gain some vision towards the bot side of the map, that was a pretty great roam coming through from Nemesis. As an Akali, you're usually thinking about the ways that this champion comes online, and the number one thing that really does bring Akali online, especially if you play towards that item, is the Rockenfeld. It gives you a lot more access into the backline. The extra burst helps with the damage done, and usually they say, play safe until you have that Rocket Belt, then you're actually a champion on Akali. As right here, Verdant, they're trying to commit towards those Void Grubs. They call Velia.
Just to drag himself back out with the press of the E button. Velia now backs into the pit. They get the Maokai route down on a couple of people, but not to a huge avail. Terran, though, no ult, still in the pit. Gonna back away. They'll take the single grub and extract, not willing to stick around and fight, especially with Corki nowhere near. Been a 4v3, I believe, as both AD carries not on the board there. So they'll give over 2 of the grubs, but not the full set. But still a marker towards the objective feat of strength, though. I will note, Baus gets a decent bit of damage there onto Terran, and that'll be the end of it for now.
Very important bits right here is that Verdant have gotten all of their kills on their actual carries. By definition, they've got it on the Victor, 2 kills on the Victor, 2 kills onto that Misfortune. So for Nemesis, getting that 1 kill over on the top side of the map is very, very important. Again, getting to your first item as Akali is so important because you actually get a huge spike. You can really start playing for that mid-jungle duo with Jarvan and Akali. Both the carries for the side of Verdant extremely immobile. But so far, we have seen Verdant play very, very cautiously, actually, around those neutral objectives. Like before, you saw they didn't really have the vision. They didn't walk into the river to contest for the dragon. With the Void Grabs, they were a little bit more cautious in terms of like Maokai walking in first, together with Tayron. So far, so good. We asked for Verdant to clean out their early game, and they've done exactly that.
They absolutely have, and with the exception of that nice bit of flashy play from Nemesis to catch Tayron on a really good lane reset from Baus and course, Nemesis we were mentioning, it's kind of been relatively Verdant favored. They make a good defensive counterplay bot side into a good aggressive play just after. Of course, they would like to start keeping that up, though, as Reckless finding a re-engage onto Shiganari. Flashes away, but Nemesis looking to come on over, looking for the perfect execution. A bomber! Out comes the explosive cask and drinks Misfortune under the table.
That is indeed the perfect execution right there. Gragas casket in the face. Baus with a really nice roam. They managed to capitalize onto Shiganari, who just now purchased his Bloodthirster. I guess he wishes he had that just a little bit tad earlier. The extra shield could have potentially saved his life right there. But that was a lot of committed bodies to try and shut down Shiganari on the bottom of the map. And as you can see, Tayron is cosplaying as the Baus. Now he's been left alone in his own devices over on the top side of the map, trying to proxy that wave. He's gonna know better this time around and try to wrap around to push the rest of it. As Noodle is on the top side of the map, trying to gain some control, some vision over on the top side with the Skull Crab.
Appears to be a singular trapped caster minion trapped next to the turret. I wondered whether it was a spectator bug, and then it started autoing.
Yeah, I think it's a
so
bug,
for whatever
yeah.
reason, yeah, it just doesn't remove. It started autoing. It turned and autoed, so it's clearly been trapped there by some nefarious Riot coding. The spaghetti has stayed there, and as a result, the caster minion has sat down to eat dinner or something.
Baus trapped it there as a tower defense.
It's some cunning plan that he's made to wave manipulate.
All right, we have Dragon up in about 35 seconds. And as you can see on your minimaps right now, 4 members of Verdant over on the bot side of the map. Tayron really does need to reset right here, but I'm not quite sure that he does have anything worthy of buying right now, as Baus is going to continue proxying the wave. This is the time where Tayron needs to actually head back to his tower, because the wave is going to be incoming.
Oh, doesn't quite get cast back towards him, but the flash body slam! And Baus finds the solo. drinks another one under the table. This man is on a mission, and that mission is explosives.
Yeah, click checks Tayron right there on whether Tayron was gonna pre-flash or not. Actually, flash body slam is one of the hardest abilities because you can't really predict it. You either have to pre-flash or you're dead by the time it has landed. So Tayron right there does get actually flash checked by Baus, and the solo bolo coming through 2-0 for Baus on this Gragas right now, and I'm seeing a very offensive item coming through us. Tayron TP's towards the tops of the map.
Yeah, I think I spotted it too. There's the Cosmic Drive and a Storm Surge for the Akali as well. No mobility, just damage. They know what they want to do this game. They'll throw down the Cataclysm. Noodle is the target. They'll begin to pre-ult himself, but that bullet time was just not it, as Velia managed to flag and drag out. And so without those key ultimates, I feel like Verdant are going to have to give this dragon up.
Yeah, that was quite unfortunate right there. Of course, Tayron doesn't feel like he can walk into this river with just a couple of components in his inventory. This is a 4 versus 5. Verdant are literally stuck on spectator mode. You can't walk into the river. You can't take the fight. You can't push the mid lane tower. They need to figure out another way of playing around those neutral objectives. This is the thing that really can hinder your mid game when you are playing that quote-unquote spectator mode, which is, you know, you cannot potentially enter that river ever. You know you can potentially gate into a fight ever, but you're stuck in this limbo of not knowing exactly how to push out your waves. Luckily for them, Tayron TPing topside is what resolved the issue for them, and they got a few tower platings there.
The all-in ends up being an ult-for-ult trade. Just doesn't want to use it to try and go for the kill. I think with the Gravity Field and the Hex Storm, Arcane Storm, that's the name of it, on top of him, decided against it. Tayron trading with the Baus, who's continued to phase rush to be very obnoxious, gets the Drunken Rage auto into the body slam. And the barrel roll as well, finding a lot of great combos. There's the ult as well. Reckless now coming from behind the turret. Looking to mess with him. Flash over the wall this time. Keep the Aatrox safe alongside the World Ender. But unfortunately for him, looks like it's his world that's getting a lot smaller.
Yeah, Tayron's not been having a fun game right here. It feels like Baus's Gragas, it's kind of difficult to deal with. I feel like Gragas and Aatrox are sort of similar in terms of like, Gragas is a bruiser mage, and then Aatrox is an AD kind of mage champion. So they're pretty similar in the way that they use their abilities mostly to trade rather than their auto attacks, even though they're both capable of doing this. However, Tayron has been struggling in lane quite a bit, and this is a 1.2k gold lead onto this Gragas, who, again, we said Akali, no problem. Java, no problem. Corki, no problem. This Gragas is going to be very, very problematic for Misfortune and Shiganari. The second he doesn't have his flash available, he's going to have to watch all his angles for that cask.
I fear for Shiganari's well-being in these fights. Absolutely everyone has a way to mess with him. Even the Corki jumping forwards with the Valkyrie can get really annoying. You ever stop to bullet time, there'll be a Cataclysm and a Magnet Storm and a Perfect Execution and the Explosive Cast. There's so many tools to make the decision-making process, the positioning for Shiganari, really, really tricky. Speaking of,
I was about to say, hold up, have you jinxed it? Oh, there we go.
Oh, flashes one, can't flash the rest. Over comes Tayron, a flash on out to safety. Turret shot's tagged by a Reckless, but Tayron can turn up and, I don't know, wave goodbye to his AD carry, about all he gets to do there.
I mean, we talked about Shiganari and his flash and how important it is to walk into these neutral objectives, and right now he doesn't have it. That's free food for Akali, Gragas, and anyone in between from the side of Los Ratones. 1,000 gold in the lead. Nemesis pushing towards that bot side of the map. They're going to get that bot lane tower. You see Velia has already invaded the bot side of the map, trying to take anything he can away from Noodle's jungle. And Verdant are taking whatever's left on the map, which is not the worst case scenario right here. Taking that Rift Herald, you could potentially look to open side lanes or that mid lane to try and catch anyone trying to shove in that wave a little bit too far. However, Verdant have sort of been falling into their own traps, right? I feel like overextending versus a team like LR, your hand's going to get chopped off real quick.
Like, if you lose track of a Jarvan and a Rel for more than, say, 10 seconds, you've got to be aware they could just be in your lane looking to gank, and that's going to happen on repeat with how aggressively Lost Returns have been playing in these mid games. Yep, the early game was a bit of a fumble this time around, and Verdant definitely had a better platform to play with, but it's now Lost Returns back in command of the game. They've got 1,000 gold, they've got the early dragons, and that feels good. At least for Verdant, they do scale pretty well. They've gotten a couple kills onto the Victor and the Misfortune, even if they had kind of been forced back towards more of an even game state from where they were early on. But you're not without options as the game goes on. They just need to kind of stop the bleeding, I guess, Georgia?
I think the most important part right here is that if Terran manages to hold Baus on a side lane, even though this matchup is losing for Terran currently, I feel like because the most accumulated gold is on Baus, and he's very, very scary, particularly for Shigenari with no summoner spells, right? You can keep him on a side lane potentially, and you can take those 4v4 fights. I can see how Verdant could very easily be in the lead in terms of how they want to team fight, because Aatrox doesn't necessarily add a layer of protection onto the Misfortune. He's kind of just a disruptor for the backline of LR. So even if he's not there later on and they make it a 4v4 and Gragason is on a side lane, Verdant can take this very, very positively into their team fights.
Worth keeping our eyes on that. Can Terran keep Baus out of those team fights? Easier said than done. It just felt like Baus has managed to find his way to a few good team plays already this game. Herald, though, was picked up earlier and is now dropped mid lane. It's also as the Hextech Dragon is spawning, so uses a counterweight to force their way into River. TP behind, though. We're going, and in comes the Baus. Looking to get on top of Shigenari, but of course, he's got Struck to work with right now. Baus goes looking for it. Finds the explosive cast onto Senko. He's managed to back away, but Nemesis in the backside. Finishes what his partner in solo lane started. Does kind of get caught up by Noodle, though. Will get traded. Bellew a little bit split off himself. Looks to get on top of Senko. Throws down the gravity field. In comes the grand entrance. Senko's doing his best to stay alive. Gets another side for power flash for the auto. Can't quite get it. As Obstina's trying to bounce around. Terran looking in. Gets another flag and drag. Will finally bring down the Rakan, but importantly, Senkox does survive. Ends up being a 2-for-2. Jungler dead, though, for Lost Returns. I'll note Verdant's health bars, not fantastic.
I'm not gonna lie, I just feel so bad for Shigenari, man. That flank from Baus and Nemesis were just pixel perfect. Pinching him onto literally no man's land. You don't have flash, you don't get to play the team fights. Again, this is how miserable it is when you B1 a champion like Misfortune or any type of AD carry that doesn't move very easily. As I'm gonna hold on to that thought because Akali is coming back in, and that's a 4 versus 4.
Do the 4 versus 4. Dragon, of course, being fought with no smite. Out comes the bullet time. Shigenari.
Not again! Not again!
Flip. Here comes the Storm Surge and that 5-point strike. Crowny now training up with Sango's got nowhere to go. Verdant Noodle are going to have to flash out the back, as is Terran. They get out with the Dragon, but they lose 2 for the price.
Oh, man.
Oh, he's not done. He's looking. There's the
I just feel
go.
so...
Oh,
I just feel so bad for Shigenari. I mean, Terran's gonna be fine here. But I just feel so bad for Shigenari, man. It's like, you don't have flash, you don't get to exist, you don't get to stand still to bullet time. Nemesis is also too slippery here. They won't be able to catch him. Baus is around the corner as well. And it's just miserable, right? To play any mobile AD carry, whether that's called Misfortune or any other thing. They've got so many disruptors from the side of LR, and the good thing is for them that they don't necessarily have an AD carry in the side of LR that requires any sort of formation. Like, Forky is pretty fine playing on his own, and look at this. Baus from the top side, Nemesis from the bot side, Obstinatus and Senkax. By the time they see Akali, their AD carry is already dead. So even though they did luckily manage to trade too, I mean, look at how long it takes for a Jarvan with the Sanded Sky to die.
Tried to flash that Martial Cadence auto, and luckily for Obstinatus got into the bush briefly. Does eventually fall, but bought enough time to at least get something back. And they do get the Dragon. It's just the fact that respawn comes on through, and now the Sakali is 3-1. You saw. Before we went to that replay, Nemesis was looking for more even onto Terran and kind of decided it was a little bit too far once he took an auto or 2 more than he was hoping for. But they are definitely not playing scared of Lost Returns. Let's say that.
I mean, they've got the damage, right? And they've got the items. Noodle has gone for the double aggro item onto Maokai as well. The double burn aggro item onto the Maokai. And he's actually the only one who's on 2 items right now. Hold up. Obstinatus, and he's gone.
Get something back. They lose Obstinatus. Reckless now in a bit of danger. Taught on the wrong side of the gravity field, so it will be a trade of supports. On the other side, though, Terran gets jumped on. Damage back, but here comes the healing. The bullet time is good enough to force Nemesis to R2 away. There's no D2 players in this game, though. They're all a little higher in the ranks than that. Jump onto Noodle, gets a Bramble smash back, but Baus throws out a cask and brings down the tree anyway. Lumberjack via explosives.
It's just so difficult, man. Verdant are trying to get any sort of vision inside their own jungle, and it's just not possible right now. You see how Lost Ratones are using Fog of War to sort of flank around, right? Again, every single champion they have can play the teamfight however they please. They've got so much agency, each and every one of them for themselves. So they just bring Verdant in a situation where if you stick us 5, then Jarvan gets a huge ult. If you don't stick us 5 and we isolate you, that's perfect. They've got so many type of assassins in the team to take you on. And right now, especially having the pocket to back it up with extra items is really, really hurting Verdant. If they can actually get a front-to-back going and not allow Akali to play onto this backline, it could potentially be the key to victory. And right here, Akali doesn't have ult. Doesn't matter. Arakan's already gone.
And take it before
Late.
Verdant can come and try and use the 2 items they've largely picked up. You heard what you asked for, Georgia. It's just not being provided to them right now, and that gold lead is pretty significant now at 3,500 golds. Managed to not get the feat of strength, they'll note. Verdant did actually get that via the objectives earlier on, so there is that little bonus there. I don't think it's going to be enough to bring them back into the game by itself. Maybe if they can manage one of these next objective fights well, they'll be able to stabilize the game that is slipping away from them. It does feel like every ward is a fight right now, though. And we've got a minute and a half until Soul Point for Lost Returns, and I suspect that will be our next point of conflict, nearly inevitably.
I will say, though, whenever there's, like, not so much of a substantial lead, like, right here you've got, like, a 3,000 gold lead, and it is a pretty substantial lead, but what I mean is, first of all, it's split among multiple members of the Son of Los Ratones, and right here, both sides have got second items completed minus Tabor on the top side of the map, right? So you've got 2 items Misfortune, 2 items on the Victor, 2 items on the Maokai, so it's not like necessarily lacking too much in terms of power. It's just that Verdant have not yet realized how they want to play these team fights because they do not have the vision, and someone has to face check, but they don't really have anyone who's tanky enough to face check champions that can really burst you out of existence like the most Los Ratones have. So Verdant need to first figure out how to gain any sort of vision, walk forward, figure out their formation, have wards behind them, because flanks have been a huge thing for Los Ratones in the way they play, and it's just way too many elements that are trying to come together, and it's just very difficult when you are in a gold deficit to make that work.
It very much is, and the fact they've got no turrets yet either makes it just that little bit trickier to control waves and set up for that initial map state to go for those shoves. As it stands, Dragon spawning and Verdant are the ones in the river right now, but again, there are flank angles. Look at the minimap. You can see Nemesis on a flank angle again, Reckless in the pit already. And that could get very scary as it's mid lane that people are fighting over the wave on right now. Away from that flank for now is Nemesis. Reckless still in the river, though. Verdant, understandably, sticking around as a group.
But they have to always keep their eye on Nemesis, right? They've got a couple of wards behind them. They've got 2 control wards, if I'm not wrong. And they're trying to play with their back against that mid lane. But this is where Baus comes from. Nemesis is now through the jungle. The other side is full of Los Ratones members.
Oh, there comes the Cataclysm, and down goes Corki, though. That's not bad work. Bullet time is solid. Finds a lot of damage on Devillier. Has to flash away. Bow split up from the team. Terran beginning to jump at him. Just gets a body slam over the wall. Looking for some more damage. Senkus with a Lich Bane on this Victor. Can look to play around those Siphon Power autos a little bit more. Nemesis takes the Hex Gate. Will immediately get out to safety, but that does mean with that member down, Verdant can look to take this Dragon.
Yeah, and Terran is actually keeping Baus in check, at least for the time being. Doesn't want to let him in. There are a few low HP bars right here. Nemesis and Baus are playing with them.
Ask away, but they can look to try and catch him out as the Make It Rain comes on down. Misfortune turning into a meteorologist briefly as I fumble that word. There's a lot of M's and O's and various other things in there. And Verdant get out with the Dragon, really importantly. That's a good moment for them, and it buys them time.
Actually, they did something very, very clever. There's a oh my god. See, you tried...
I started it, I'm sorry.
It's contagious, apparently, okay? There's a thing where it's like, if there's too many flanks, there's really no credible flanks to try and get kills, right? And right there, what Los Ratones did was they spread themselves way too thin to the point where Verdant focused all their efforts onto getting one member. That one member was Crowny, and that was a 4 versus 5 instantly in favor of Verdant.
Noodle just died, and guess what spawned about a minute ago? It is Baron. You've got a Corki on 2 items. Do they want to force this? They're certainly threatening it. Over towards it they go. Baus shoving in the other side. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. LR, start the purple worm.
Yeah, Baus does not have TP. Just gets his level 16 and starts walking towards the objective. The TP coming through from Terran.
Try and play this around again. No smites. It will be a 4v5. Terran trying to play this one out regardless. Nemesis still in the Twilight Shroud, looking for an angle. Into the backline they go with the quickness, trying to buy some time. Nemesis continuing to threaten. They've got the mid-tier 1 to work around still. And Crowny kills off Senkuks. In comes the Cataclysm. The bullet time to try and stand and deliver. As Shigenari tries to draw the guns at noon. But it's a final hour in this game. Terran tries to jump on forwards, but will die. Regardless, World Ender, unfortunately apt for Verdant's team fight.
Oh boy, you saw how Verdant was so careful, trying to play underneath their tower, trying to not allow a lot of flanks coming through from Los Ratones. But you're forgetting Crowny on that Corki, and they let him free hit the entire time. It's just becoming so complicated right here, right? Because if it's not Shiganari getting called, then Sekax gets thrown into the mix with Faust's ult. And again, this Gragas has been so damn disruptive for both Sekax and Shiganari. And there's only so much you can do, right? You can be careful, but you can never know where the cask is going to come from as Obstinatus. Trying to get a little bit of intel on what's going on. We all know what's going on. I think they know what's going on as well.
Apparently, it's getting the Baron as Obstinatus hops back over the wall. Doesn't have anyone to battle dance to quite yet. There is Sunkux in that top lane, so should be able to get there out to safety well enough. But that is a breakpoint. The gold lead balloons again. This time more towards that 6,500 mark, which is getting to get a little unmanageable. 1,500 odds in the jungle and mid, 1,000 at the bottom, and top lane. Again, a monumental individual lead from Baus, who is taking one of our Rookie of the Split contenders to task right here in playoffs.
Absolutely. And Los Ratones right here. They're going to look for the last, I was about to say the last dragon. For some reason, I thought they had 3. They have 2. It's going to be so point for them. They're trying to take again. What they've been doing so well this game is entering the
What?
Where did my Victor go?
He decided that he was going to go to the Shadow Realm. He's playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now rather than League of Legends, and Baus has
with
decided
Yugi's grandpa.
to help in that. Exactly. There are no weak players in my grandpa's team, but currently there is a dead Senkux, and he'll respawn in 30 seconds and look to prove Yugi true at some point in the future.
That's actually so tough. You're playing against Baron the up team, full 5 members of Los Ratones, 3 waves pushing towards your base. Crowny and Reckless around that mid lane. You've got Nemesis and Velia over on the bot side of the map. This is going to be 2 outer towers taken straight away from the side of Los Ratones. That's a pretty successful Baron buff so far. And it comes from Baus. Taking just a member off the map means that you have to bundle up the rest to try and defend the other sides of the map. Unless, well, oh my damage.
He has a death cap, by the way.
Of course he does.
This Gragas kinda hurts, folks.
I'm telling you, man, like, they can live with the Akali and the Corki and the Javan diving in, but Gragas is just such a disruption, such a nuisance in the backline. The more immobile you are, the more you're going to suffer playing against Gragas. And it's just the fact that you're not playing against a tanked Gragas. You're playing against Baus's Gragas. Talking about it, though.
Okay. Trying to catch him off. They go for the bush bait on the other side of the map where the dragon is. Good dash away. The strut is enough. Misfortune on the catwalk mid-team fight. Gets herself out to safety. Got a man advantage now coming into the dragon. 20 seconds until it spawns. This would be so point for either team. And Verdant, I think, want to take this moment to finally find a way back into the game.
Yeah, but what's the vision again? Nemesis on the left side, Reckless on the bottom, Valiant County on the right. That's just, again, a sandwich that Los Ratones are trying to create right here. They're trying to buy time for Baus to come back online. 30 seconds on the death timer and TP up and available. Is Los Ratones going to take this fight? There are summoner spells on Shiganari and Senkux, so this is not going to be as easy to get to the backline.
Nemesis currently taking Raptors. Are they going to give up this dragon? Maybe they don't want this play. I think it is gone. No way for Velia to get over from where he is. He'll throw out the Maokai ult, trying to punish them as they're in the wrong side of the jungle of Los Ratones. Managed to back away far enough to not get hit by the Nature's Grasp. Aaron avoids that Demacian standard that's thrown down. There will be no Dragon Strike to connect.
Guys, your bases are on the opposite side.
A little bit, yeah. Why? Nemesis has got onto an inhibitor turret. How has this happened?
Well, the entire time that Verdant, as Obstinatus has been left for dead behind, so we're gonna ignore that. The entire time that Verdant were actually focusing on getting the dragon, the entire Los Ratones was already on the bot quadrant of Rules jungle. So they had taken complete control, complete vision, they had already pushed down the waves. It was more that Verdant tried to leverage the fact that they had already taken 1 kill and it was a 4 versus 5, trying to take something off the map. And actually, that Dragon Soul is a win con. If Verdant managed to get out of their base in 4 minutes and somehow miraculously make their way through their fully watered jungle and avoid Casks and Akalis and Javans and all the damage thrown their way by Los Ratones and smite that dragon, there is a chance for a comeback.
Well, we said it was looking like that coming into that soul point fight, and they still managed to fight it. It's still not been perfect, of course, because they ended up taking a lot of structural damage from it. Honestly, probably critical structural damage. An inhibitor in mid lane, and at least the inhibitor turret in bot really stinks. That's 8,000 gold now for Los Ratones, and the control you talked about in the jungle Still sat there. There's 1 or 2 wards.
Oh,
That's about
no.
it, and they're a long way away.
Poor
and
Summer
they're-
Child.
Yeah, Obstinatus may well be in so much danger. Gets cast away to safety. So fortunately, he gets to live until autumn.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a Fnatic push, and 2 of them played for Fnatic. So they know very well what a Fnatic bush should look like and what it should be, as they're chasing down Nemesis
Hang
right
on.
here.
He goes golden, means he avoids the Bramble Smash. Out comes the ult, though, from the Maokai, looking to try and keep him to set dead. He does actually get out to safety. A lot of burn, though, onto Nemesis, who has to R out. Be the Zhonya's used and the ult used, but no additional summers. A little bit too far from the Verdant. You can't secure the full kill. Baus on a flank angle himself, though. Does he? Surely he doesn't want this, right?
Nah, but I feel like if he does stay there, the second Los Ratones are back on the map, and the pressure through the both sides of the map, Baus can really find a very good pick. Like, Senkax is way too overextended, has the Seekers. How fast are you at pressing Zonia, Senkax?
Fastest
Oh, no.
press
No,
in the
no, no,
West.
no,
He's
no, no.
resetting. Don't be
Not
shopping.
there, not like
Don't
that.
be shopping. The high street stores are back in business, and Baus is looking to bring him down. Senkuk stays alive for a second or two, gets cast, looking to stay alive for a moment more, and that is it. Baus with the bush special. He learns from his former Fnatic companions there, who teach him the ways of their former team.
Yeah, great patience right there from Baus. Waits until the rest of Verdant had actually reset back up on the map because they had to defend their waves, right? So he takes revenge by killing Senkax for a second time, actually, this game in a solo kill scenario. And 4th item will most likely be in his inventory the second he leaves the base. There you go. That is going to be the Leech Bane. And Los Ratones are going to start that one up. 25 more seconds for Senkax watching that gray screen in his face. And I don't think there is much fight right here for Verdant to try and take that step forward, I guess, to get anywhere near Baron.
Yeah, it's not happening, is it? They're going to lose the Baron. There'll be a reset coming on through. There's a minute and a half until Dragon, which you know Lost Returns will then be able to play for. But you can already see that Verdant are saying, screw it. We're getting as many wards down as we can in the enemy jungle. We want to make sure that we can try and contest this Dragon in some way, shape, or form. Problem is that Lost Returns said, fine, we're going to push this top side and try and at least get that turret before we reset and get even more gold in our back pockets.
And that's what's very scary right now. This Baron buff is going to last for as long as that dragon is dead. So when the dragon spawns, all these lanes will be pushed in by the Baron timer. And knowing Los Ratones, they're going to try to figure out a way, like a 1-3-1, some sort of way, to try and push down another inhibitor tower or even that second inhibitor down the bottom of the map, which means a lot of minions are going to be raining into Verdant's base, and they somehow need to defend. So you're either going to throw it all away and try to get a pick right here to make it a 4 versus 5, or you're going to have to play defense mode for the next minute and a half.
So Masks now in for Noodle and Reckless, interestingly as well, amping up his 2 AP solo lanes. We've got a lot of AP to be amped, so nice pick up there, and they have managed to get themselves into the river well. Of course, you have got the Maokai, so always able to cheat vision and damage, especially with an AP variant, by pressing E and throwing a sapling into a handy bush.
All right. Bot lane wave pushed. Los Ratones do what they've been doing the entire game. Push these waves, get aggressive vision. Everything has been swept from Los Ratones as well. That was inside their jungle. Very, very clever right there from the side of LR. And Obstinatus trying to get a knockup.
Here we go.
But
There's that Magnet Storm, but indeed, it's looking like that might be a very aggressive form of that connective. Noodle gets cast away, stays alive for a second. Senkux does not. Belly on the backside, Nemesis with the perfect execution, part 2. And unfortunately for Verdant, game 2 is looking like a done deal in favor of Lost Ratones. They care not for the Dragon. They care for the end of the game. Baus will teleport down to the inhibitor in bot lane, and they will run these Baron-empowered minions straight to the Nexus and a win in game 2.
a little bit of a longer game right here. A classic Los Ratones early game that brought us all the way here. But this is going to be match point for Los Ratones. One more, and we will be seeing them in Copenhagen facing up against Ruddy Sack